What's cracking, everybody? New video. Welcome back to the channel. So, taking it old school right now. Haven't recorded in the car in a while. We're running some errands. I had a few minutes. So I said, you know what? Let me do a video. A new video. This one, you guys see the thumbnail. You guys see the title. My opinion only, right? For whatever my opinion is worth. In my opinion, the hardest barrio in the 805. Drum roll. Colonia Chiques. Yep. Hey. Apologies to Southside Chiques because them fools are right there now. I'm going over the span of my life, right? Colonia Chiques is one of the oldest and biggest barrios in California, period. Southside Chiques is very deep, very violent. But I remember in the 80s hearing more about Colonia, bumping heads with the dudes from Colonia. Not Colonia. Chiques itself, the city of Chiques, Oxnard, California, is a dangerous city. If we're talking about dangerous cities, I have to also mention in the 805, in Santa Barbara County, Santa Maria. Those two probably are the most dangerous cities in our area, where Santa Barbara and Ventura counties. But I'm just talking about decades of proven performance and being violent, having massive numbers. I got to give it to Colonia Chiques. I don't know if I told the story. I've thought about telling the story. Maybe I did tell the story. The closest I ever came to being killed by a rival, closest ever, was Colonia Chiques. It was in 1988. There was a lot of back and forth going on between my neighborhood, the West Side, and Colonia. Back then, you know, in the 80s into the 90s, the West Side, my neighborhood was the biggest neighborhood almost in the whole county of Santa Barbara County. The only ones back then I think that were probably deeper than us was Northwest and Santa Maria. They were big back then. But I say that to say this. Back in that era, everybody hated Colonia and everybody hated my neighborhood. We're about 40 minutes away from each other. So it didn't make sense for us to try to be beefing all the time when there's that much room between us. They had enough enemies around them, and we had enough people hating us as well. So it was mainly the weekends. They would hit State Street. Back then, that's where everybody cruised. That's where you picked up the high nas, you know, got your phone numbers, whatever. But State Street became dangerous. Those of you that were cruising back then that remember, State Street was one lane going up, one lane going down. The West Side, we were always, usually, if you're facing towards the ocean, we're on the right side. That sidewalk on State, the east side, if they were there, they were on the left side. The vatos from the avenue would come through. We'd get into it. Colonia, anybody. I mean, it was. Everybody was there for high-nas, but State Street would get wild. Now, what had happened was the vatos from Colonia jumped my homeboy Gus, right? And that initiated shit for a while in 1988. Every weekend, something was going down. Now, I was in a group home for most of that, right? but I got a home pass every other weekend. And so one day, me and my road dog, me and Muggsy, were walking in our neighborhood. And it was right at dusk. So it was like right when it was going to get pitch dark, pitch black, right? And anybody who's from Bruta or the area, been to my neighborhood, if especially back then in the 80s, we didn't have street lights. And there's a lot of trees on the west side. So when it got dark, it got very dark very fast. Okay? So me and Muggsy were walking down the street. We were actually headed to the park, West Side Park. This incident took place, where it started was on the corner of San Pascual and Arriaga. So we were about 3 blocks away from West Side Park, which is headquarters for the neighborhood, right? As we're walking, we're about to walk under this tree, right? And the tree, the branches hung over the sidewalk. So you could be standing there and nobody could see you, but you could see them. It was weird. So right when we were about to go under the bush, I looked over, the tree, I looked over, and I see a vato, and he had sunglasses on like these. He had a hat on. I think he had a hat on. He had a trench coat on. And it was dark. It was like seconds away from being pitch black, right? And I looked. Me and Muggsy were stoned, man. I'm not going to tell the whole story. Bottom line, my homeboy, we didn't even have a weapon on us because we were going like 3 blocks, right? Because I lived right there. And my homeboy jams him. Muggsy's like, where the fuck you from? What's the west side? Whatever he said, man. And when he said that, in my head, I was like, the way the vato was dressed, obviously he was there to put in work, and he was looking around like he didn't know where he was, right? Man, when Muggsy jammed that dude, he looked for a second just to see, was there more than 2 of us? He reached in his motherfucking trench coat and we booked it. We were out of there. Everything in my neighborhood, except 4 streets, is a dead end. So we hit the railroad tracks on Arriaga. Boom. Once we hit the railroad tracks, that's how we get away from the Judas back then. Everything we did, we went through the railroad tracks in the neighborhood. But where that vato was standing on the sidewalk, behind him, over his right shoulder, which would be our left, right, there was a van. Well, what we didn't know, but we were about to find out, it was full of his homeboys. And let's just say they drove up the curb onto the railroad tracks. And how neither one of us got shot is a fucking miracle, because they had multiple different calibers. The fools were not playing. It's always Colonia, Chicas, period. Chicas, period, has always been known, man. They like their gunplay. Even in the 80s, they love their gunplay. Santa Barbara has always been more up close and personal. They're going to kill you. They're going to stab you. Santa Barbara was always stabbing. There, of course, there were shootings. Mine was with the gun. There's been other murders in SB with guns, but for the most part, they're going to stab you. And you can't take a knife to a gunfight. And them vatos from Colonia that night were playing for keeps. Luckily, they must have all had their guns like in TV. They were holding them that way instead of this way. They had them that way. Nah, I don't know. Shout out to Colonia. Don't get mad. But that's my 2 cents. To me, that neighborhood is so big, so well known, so respected, because they earned it, right? I remember back in '93 when I fell on my hot one, there was easily 500 dudes from my neighborhood. There was probably about 350 from the east side, and us combined, Colonia probably had about fucking 1,500 members back then, right? I remember being in the joint. I had a celly, one of the vatos that started Flores, right? He told me back when he was young, they used to go to Chiques to score carga, score heroin. That's how old that barrio is. I can't wait to see the comment section. Shout out to everybody in the 805, man. Like I said, this is just my 2 cents based on my life experiences. We went at it with the Avenue. I only remember bumping heads with Southside Chicas one time. Me personally, I remember one time, and it was in 1989, and it happened at Oak Park. So anybody that was there that remembers that night, that's the only incident that I remember with Southside. Colonia, we had a lot of run-ins. Squires, I don't remember nothing ever with Squires. The West Side, the Flats, nothing. What is it, Lemonwood? I think it's Lemonwood. I don't remember. It was always Colonia and the Avenue, which is not Chiques, but the Avenue, we bumped heads a lot with them too. Shout out to everybody, man. Shout out to the Ave. I get a lot of love from the Ave too. And stay tuned. I may be going live next week. I'm not sure yet. There's a lot going on, man. You guys stay tuned. Thank you guys for your support. Everybody, please be safe, be smart, and tell the ones you love that you love them. I'm out.